We are back for another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Last time we did this, it was to kick off the year with that Sean Strickland pay-per-view where there was a lot of talking points to get to and not all of them good. So we felt like it was right to break out that format. And I think that whilst not necessarily maybe as many bad things, but a lot of talking points nonetheless from this past weekend where we had the PFL versus Bellator event. Obviously, you know, we were going to do something about that regardless, but you also had the Mexico City event for the UFC, which was a big card. Crazy how that, like, seeing those events where, you know, they're in an arena with fans in, I just, you know, I suddenly am like, oh, and we're back to how things are. And then, as we spoke about before hitting record, not for long. But that is not what we're here to talk about. So I guess we should do the PFL Bellator event first because that came first over the weekend, and then you had the Mexico card later on that night. We do also, for this episode, have the long-awaited return of our favorite Irish son, Jake. Jake, how have you been doing? And I suppose as quickly as you can, what's been really bothering you in MMA lately that you haven't been able to get off your chest?
The Apex middleweight Apex main events. They've been eating me up, man. Like I'm starting to lose my dedication to MMA, but it's fine. I've finally come back from the shadows because, you know, I've got stuff to complain about and I can't wait any longer.
Right. Well, before we get to complaining, we're going to kick this off with one of the good points from the PFL and Bellator card. Steve, I'll go to you first. What was the thing right at the top of your list?
Firstly, the first thing I had to note it down, and I don't have my notes obviously, but the first thing I had noted down was the pacing. The pacing was really good on the show, I thought. Generally, it feels weird to go in with that instead of one of the fights, but like in terms of the bigger fights, we saw them. They were fights that happened for the most part. Some impressive finishes in there, which I know we're going to come on to in a minute, but I thought the pacing of the show was really impressive. I thought just, you know, obviously this PFL Bellator thing has been kind of rumbling for ages, but, you know, seeing Amanda Guerra and Dan Hardy doing like links together, it feels real now. It was weird in the moment, but no, I'm excited to see what they cook up. But yeah, to get to the original point in the pacing of the show, we were going fight. Other than the start where there was a bit of lead in to the opening fights, and the opening fights kind of did drag a little bit, but I thought the pacing of the show was generally really good, which has not always been the case with PFL and Bellator, especially PFL.
Yeah, I mean, it helped that there wasn't any 5-rounders, I guess, but like even just that's not even a problem just with the PFL finals. That's a problem across the board that they have. Like, and also there was a real reduced kind of like in your face statistics, things they were throwing at you. Obviously in the finals last year, they had the little Zoom calls with various people where we were listening to Wiz Khalifa do co-commentary for like half.
Oh, there was a Zoom call with John McCarthy a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But to your point, there's no like
John, like
the entire bottom half of the screen was not covered by stats. That's an upgrade.
We don't want to know people's kick speed. Do you know what I mean? No one wants to know that. No one wants to know people's kick speed. Just show me the fights. So major improvement there.
That reminds me of something I was talking to a friend ages ago, probably on one of the cards during the season last year or the year before, and he said to me like, "What are arm strikes? Why are they striking each other in the arm?" And I had to be like, "Yeah, they're punches." But especially on the pacing here, because it was like the third live sporting event I'd watched that day, and the pacing on the WWE show in the morning was god awful. So I appreciated it on this show.
That's a very good point. Before this feels like a good opportunity actually to tip this one off. Before we get into the fights themselves, because I agree with you that the viewing experience in that regard was pretty good, but I did also put the viewing experience into bad because even though I didn't have the sound on personally from seeing people's reactions and stuff, it seemed like there were some issues with the sound quite a lot of people had, but also the event itself, like I enjoyed the card, and like you said, the pacing made it a lot more enjoyable. But there was no atmosphere whatsoever, which I know is kind of just that happens when you're putting on these events in Saudi Arabia. But also, them claiming it was sold out. I was like, it kind of looked a little bit like it didn't look too far off when Karate Combat do the events in someone's back garden. Like it felt a little bit like it's sold out, but that's because you've only put that many chairs out. Like, so I thought that kind of took away a little bit.
It's like, was it a ticketed event, or was it kind of like for invited guests? I'm not too sure. The overhead shots did make it look like it was just taking place in a car park somewhere.
Yeah.
So I didn't love them keep going to that overhead shot, especially when it's like, actually that's not that big. But in terms of the production, the sound was a little bit tinny at times. On the prelims, I was watching on the DAZN Sky channel. They had the prelims on Freeview on there, and there was a few moments where it completely cut out. So that's something that I don't know what the issue was with that, but the production could have been better, but yeah.
Yeah, it's only like minor things, but like I've seen a lot of people talk as well about the lighting of the actual cage wasn't great.
The lighting, I think, wasn't great.
Which I know that these are teething problems with doing an outdoor event in Saudi Arabia, and you're not going to have this crazy crowd that are buzzing through all of these fights. So I get that some of it is out of their hands, but like you said, some of the decisions, like the constant drone shots and stuff, didn't really help. It just kind of felt a little bit like it wasn't too far away from watching, those kind of like hybrid events we had with the UFC, where it was like there was a crowd, but there's only a certain couple hundred and stuff. Like, it wasn't total apex silence, but slightly above that, and it just felt a bit weird, I thought. But still, overall, I'll take that if it means the pacing's good. So,
yeah, I'm glad you.
Jake, we should probably go to another good point, I think, before we get into some of the weirder stuff that happened on the card. So, what tops the list for you in terms of the good performances and the best fights on this card?
It's tough to choose because I was actually quite surprised at how well this card turned out. Like I was expecting a couple of good fights and a couple of stinkers, because that's what PFL and Bellator are. That's what their cards generally are, and there were a few stinkers, but that's bound to happen. But I think my biggest takeaway from this is Vadim Nemkov is an animal. That guy is fucking monstrous. Like he went back up to heavyweight, took on Bruno Capelota, and just ran through him. And he was heavier than Bruno Capelota somehow, albeit by like 3 or 4 pounds. But still, I just thought his performance was fantastic, and I think if they throw him
really big in like the chest area. His chest was massive. His back is
huge. He's just all torso. But it makes for a really good fighter. I think if they just throw him back in there with Ryan Bader for the heavyweight title, they're doing him a huge disservice. I think he's the man for Ngannou. I think people would far rather watch that than all due respect to Renan Ferreira for his win. But I don't think many people are sold on that.
See, people were saying that at the time, and they were like, obviously, on paper, you think Nemkov would be a better challenger than Ferreira or Bader for Ngannou. But then Renan Ferreira did what he did, and then I saw people being like, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing that guy against Francis Ngannou.
Oh no, for sure. I think it would be fun, and I think they could do it. They could do a lot with the build-up, but I just think Nemkov is a bit more fun on paper, at least.
It's a more interesting matchup for Ngannou. I could see the Renan Ferreira one being a bit like the Jair Rosenstrike fight, where like it's just 2 big guys who hit really hard, and one of them's going to get hit first and go down, and it's probably going to be Renan Ferreira. But and Nemkov at least brings a more technical aspect to it, which is interesting to see how Francis can deal with that at this stage. But I don't mind either fight.
Yeah, I think that, like, even though we don't necessarily. I don't feel the need to see Nemkov fight Bader. I feel like it probably should. Considering he's just gone up, he probably should fight Bader for the Bellator title, and then you can have him against Ngannou, and he's the Bellator champion going into the fight, adds a little bit of extra stakes. But like the top of my good list was Renan Ferreira, because even though you didn't really get to see much of him, like they needed something to come out of that. Like, if Ryan Bader had won a decision or something like that, it would have been really bad for them. Considering they had made that announcement a few days before, like it could have been a gamble that didn't pay off. I think in certain scenarios, and Renan Ferreira like delivered what like you couldn't ask for anything more. At the same time, the first thing that I put in my ugly category, Francis Ngannou leaving as soon as the fight ends. Like, what? Like, it's just one like this category. The reason we do good, bad, and ugly, things that I can't explain. I don't know who's done something wrong there. Did nobody tell Ngannou? Did Ngannou just decide, nah? Like, but Jesus Christ, what a tremendous oversight to not have Ngannou step into the cage for a face-off, and then immediately, like, if Ngannou does come back and fight in the PFL, like, which is a talking point on its own, right? Like, that'll be end of the year, they've said. You can start the build-up of showing people who Renan Ferreira is, like, right in that instant by being like, hey, look, this guy's going to fight him. It won't happen for a while. Get to know this guy so he's not a complete nobody for when the fight happens. And then Francis, they just cut to him and Francis is just leaving. Oh, jeez. That's Bellator.
That's the Bellator coming out.
There could be.
It's interesting.
There could be a positive out of this, though. There could be a positive out of this. They can play the Ngannou ducking Ferreira card. I mean, he saw Renan Ferreira win and he left immediately. He's so scared. You know what I mean? He's ducking him. That's the only thing I can get out of the situation that could benefit the PFL in any way. Because that was a disaster. Even if he didn't get in the cage, even if he just stood ringside and you did that thing where they just pan the shots back and forward, that's enough. That's enough. But no, they cut to him exiting the building.
I like how they dropped the ball on this one, but they managed to do it for Cedric Doumbé and MVP, which isn't happening because MVP is now in the UFC. They managed to do it for that one, but no one can think, actually, let's get Ngannou in the cage after. They were too busy trying to promote John Jones versus Ngannou.
Okay, that was going to be on my... I don't know if I'm going to put it in bad. I'm going to put it in ugly. Sean O'Connell, right? God love him. Had one of the best fights I've ever seen with Steve Bosse.
Yes.
8-9 years ago, whatever it was. And he's a great commentator, and I'm glad he got his $1 million paycheck, and he's got his work with the PFL now. But the man won't take no for an answer. Surely he understood Jones was not going to come out and say something in a rival promotion that would imply that he was going to fight Francis, or that he was going to come out and say, oh yeah, it's the UFC that's holding me up. They're not going to let me fight Francis because they're not going to cross promote, all hail PFL. Like, what is he thinking that's going to come out of this? And then fucking Chael Sonnen there, he's like, oh, John, thanks for not beating around the bush. What? All he did was beat around the bush. He just kept going, maybe, if things were right, maybe it could happen, but I think if I did, what? So, like, it was got uncomfortable to watch after a while, because I figured maybe he'd ask once or twice, maybe try to get a nudge and a wink out of Jones, but he was there for 5 solid minutes, just being like, would you fight Francis Ngannou right now? Because the PFL will do it. We'll do it. We'll let you sign the contract right now. And Jones just wasn't having it.
He made it very clear that it was not the PFL that were holding this fight up.
And look, it's a good company man move, and it probably wasn't his idea to do that. Someone at the PFL probably went to him and went, "Look, if you're talking to Jones, buff up the PFL a bit, see if you can get the shit talk to UFC." But it went on too long, and it became very weird.
it did like start to become just a bit awkward. And I get it as like a little I rate it if it was just like a little throwaway comment, but it did feel a little bit like, what are you going to say to that, John? Eh? You can't say anything, can you? Oh, this is going to make you uncomfortable. And then
And
Francis
it was a
calls him
lot.
fat, and then they don't even speak to Francis. I don't think it was just
that would have been. That's it. That's in my good list, by the way. That's in my good list. Francis calling him fat was one of the better moments of the night. Francis as a whole, aside from leaving, Francis was great.
How did they not even get Francis on the broadcast during an interview? Like, that seems so basic.
Like, he's there.
They're in Saudi Arabia and he's fighting there next month. He's fighting in 2 weeks.
Like, the least you could do is interview him, or like it's
on the same channel. They're both on the zone. Promote the other fight at least.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the front row, right? He is like a couple of yards behind him is one of his potential opponents, John Jones, and he's sitting beside Mike Tyson, the guy who's in the ring for all the main card fights. Surely you can get him in the ring or get him on the broadcast. And they have the camera in front of him. They keep cutting to Francis Ngannou in between fights and in between rounds. But no one thought, fuck it, someone go up with a microphone. Oh, I didn't realize how much that annoyed me until now. Like, he's there. Take advantage of the opportunity. And like Steve said, he's fighting on the same network in 2 weeks' time, in the same country, organized by the same group of people. Surely it's in your best interest to put him on the network and talk about it.
They bizarre. I mean, this is why we do this format, so we can get through all of these things. But ultimately, come back around to the best parts about this card, which, I mean, I don't think we've spoken about the best part of this card so far, which was the co-main event between Johnny Eblen and Impa Kasanganay. Definitely the best fight on the card. Probably the one I was the most looking forward to anyway. But yeah, such a good fight. I'm so happy for Impa Kasanganay. Like, he just gets better and better every time. And I don't think many people would have given him, even with what he's been able to do, I don't think many people would have given him a shot against Johnny Eblen. And that fight was super close, split decision. But also, not to take too much away from Johnny Eblen, because I thought that he did a really great job as well to come back from that second round and steal that third. So this was like, away from all the funny shenanigans and stuff that were going on and stuff, this was just a really, really good fight between two fighters that I love watching. Yeah,
absolutely. I think Johnny Eblen has, he's kind of attracted kind of a wider MMA demographic with some of the things that he said, how he'd clear through the UFC's middleweight division and that kind of stuff. So there were eyes on this fight. Impa obviously has all the attention for what happened in the Joaquin Buckley fight and how he's moved on from that, how he, won the PFL in 2023. And it was just a really, really good fight. It was a really good fight. I personally had it for Impa. I had it 2-1. I gave him the first and the second. But the first round was close. Could have gone either way. I think Eblen showed a lot that he can come back from adversity, because I thought he was out of it in the second round. I didn't know if he was going to make... I don't know if he was going to see the third round. So, yeah, I think both men's stocks have to go up. A lot of people saying Eblen needs to rethink this idea about he could run through the UFC. But look, people are talking about him. People are going to want to see him fight again. That's good for his brand. His girlfriend isn't leaving him because he won the fight. Fair play, Johnny Eblen. I like seeing relationships succeed in MMA. So, yeah, fantastic fight.
Yeah, it was a great fight. I wasn't watching this one as closely as I would have liked. I had some distractions going on during this one, but it was a really good fight. Obviously, Impa really hurt Johnny at one point. I do think you need to rethink the whole Johnny Eblen is the best middleweight in the world a little bit. Maybe he wasn't at his best at this fight. He could have. He didn't really put that pressure on that we've seen in the past. Some of that's obviously down to Impa as well, but. Just all in all, great fight. Really could have gone either way. I think I'm looking at MMA decisions now, and there's not many on there, but there's cards on there from both guys, and it was a split decision. So evidently a very close fight and a very good fight as well. The best fight of the night. Which I don't really like saying about middleweight fights. Middleweight fights don't deserve that praise, but this was a good fight.
To flip to a bad point, and I know that I'm gonna be rounding up a lot of this card by saying this, but there was a lot of fights, like I believe you said at the start, Steve, that they were fights that happened, and this isn't necessarily their fault because some fights changed around, and we had obviously a couple of fights fall off this card, and also they were putting up not necessarily all of the PFL's best fighters and champions, but they have the roster that they have. They got to put those guys up again. You're not going to go, oh, well, this guy should maybe fight this guy from Bellator because they match up better. You tried to put the top guys versus the top guys wherever you could. And that led to a lot of fights. Like, I know that the fight fell off originally. I was gutted about that because Magomed Karamov, that fight would have been so good. But I don't need to watch Jason Jackson just run through Ray Cooper III. Like, same could be said for AJ McKee and Clay Collard, though I was excited for that fight because I love Clay Collard. Like, there was just too many fights on this card that I was like, well, that's going to go into the bad category because it didn't look PFL. It didn't make PFL look too good. But I don't think there was ever any, confusion as to who had the better roster. Everyone knew Bellator had the better roster anyway. But the nature of some of the fights, I think, not necessarily the results. I think the results were pretty predictable across the board, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
very.
Some of the performances was like, even Nemkov. I thought Kapaloza had that. Like, he seemed to hurt Nemkov, and you're like, oh, this might actually be a good one. And then Nemkov just takes him down and runs through him. Like,
it was like that. I think, like, I was writing about this last night, and I was saying for PFL they had like Jesus Pinedo, Gabriel Braga, Magomed Karamov pull out, and like those are three fighters that people would have wanted to see on this card and who would have matched up well, and they had to pull out. So we ended up with Ray Cooper III in there. Great fighter, 2-time PFL champion, but like the way Jason Jackson went through him shows that there was levels to it. Like, there was that wasn't really going to be a contest. Nemkov, I think they struggled to find a good opponent for him, and Kapaloza was the best one that they could get. And it was a test, but he showed that like it was a very fucking easy test. AJ McKee and Clay Collard, as you said, like really good fight on paper, but I think if you think about the skill disparity between them, it really showed in how the fight went.
It's really wide. It's a really wide skill disparity.
It's really wide, really wide, and I wouldn't say. I mean, Aaron Pico versus Henry Corrales. I know that's another one that came together on short notice. I don't think anyone predicted that Corrales would give Pico any trouble in that fight, and he didn't. So. Yeah, just like the matchmaking, it was a product of circumstance, but at the same time, you do have to judge it, and it was one of the poorer aspects of the card because you could look at a lot of fights and go, "Oh, well, that's going to be a pretty one-sided decimation." It's just that the performances themselves are what were impressive.
Yeah, I did. This is very Bellator actually. The fact that you can predict a lot of the winners is a very Bellator thing, especially on the prelims. I did like I put like an accumulator together on like every fight on this card. It got me like 2-1. That's what we're looking at here. Even obviously the first two fights, you had two Saudi Arabia fighters in them. They were setups. So that's the kind of thing they used to see with Bellator, which like Scott Coker's not there anymore, so it's a bit of that's kind of his trademark, and they're still going for it, which is interesting. But one thing I do want to touch on, Aaron Pico and Henry Corrales. There was a little bit of intrigue there, I thought, given they had the history. Henry had a win over him, but I mean, Aaron said this when I spoke to him as well. He's a much different guy than he was the first time they fought. So, and that was clear. That was clear immediately in that fight, and it didn't last too much longer.
Yeah, I think it became clear the second they stepped into the ring together because Corrales is older now. he's not really the fighter he was when he beat Pico. Pico's certainly not the fighter the Corrales beat. I think, it looked like a squash match, and it kind of was. But again, fair play to Corrales for stepping up on short notice and saving that fight, because I'll take any opportunity to watch Aaron Pico. He's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I've only got 1 point left to talk about, and it goes into the ugly category. So I might save that one in case there's anything else you guys wanted to chat about.
Well, depending on what you're going to say, I think you might talk about the last main card fight we haven't spoken about, and I'll let you speak about that because I have thoughts on that as well. Biagio,
that's not the one.
Oh, that's not the one you talking about. Oh yeah, I think right. I'll take that main card one in the ugly section then. Yoel Romero and Thiago Santos. Oh my god, what a dull fight.
I've seen a lot of people defending this fight and saying that it wasn't like the barn burner that it, people maybe thought it could have been, and it wasn't as dull as people thought it could have been. I thought it was pretty dull.
Yeah, it was pretty dull.
Yeah,
this fight could have either been like really crazy or just complete nothing happening. That's kind of the Yoel Romero scale at this point, no in between, and that's what we got. Nothing happened.
It was way closer to being terrible than being like okay, though. I thought like it was.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, there was minuscule moments of action with like the calf kicks, and I think Romero might have thrown a flying knee at one point. But that's Romero. That's what he does. Like you just like, yeah. As you said, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. On the scale of terrible to amazing, far closer to terrible. And I know that they only put that fight on the main card because Romero is still a big name. He's like fucking 70 years old and he's still fighting. It's always really fun. Santos, he might still have a bit of name value. Stick that on the main card, maybe you get an extra pay-per-view. But how do you not look at their recent track records and go, that fight's gonna suck? Because that's what I did. I looked at that and went, that fight would have been great fucking 5 or 6 years ago when they were both in the UFC. But now they're old, kind of washed up, and they haven't won a fight in God knows how long. Well, Romero's actually been winning fights recently before the name card one, but when was the last time Santos won a fight? People were like, oh, Santos really fell off here. He did nothing in that fight. He's not been doing that for years. It's just the fact of the matter.
Over Johnny Walker in 2021.
That's wild.
And even
that fight as well.
The win before that was Jan Blachowicz in 2019. So a 2-year gap between those wins as well.
He's won one fight since the John Jones fight.
Yeah.
One fight.
It was against Johnny Walker. And that fight sucked. Not sure if you remember. That fight was horrible. People
had a bad fight with Johnny Walker. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, Johnny Walker had a shit fight.
Walker.
Like, I remember people sending death threats to John Kavanagh because he made Johnny Walker a boring fighter. But Santos didn't do much of anything either. I think this was a really ugly fight to watch. And Romero deserved the win. But please put him on fucking Bellator undercards from now on, if need be. Just so, he goes, he has a fight, a non-competitive fight against some fucking 20-year-old. And that's that. I don't need to be seeing him in elite level fights anymore because he's just holding up the show.
Do we have a conversation? There's a conversation to be had about Thiago Santos. Like, apart from like a short run in 2018 and 2019, he's not that exciting of a fighter. Like, he fought Kevin Holland, he fought Jimmy Manuwa, he fought Jan Blachowicz. Other than that, there's not loads there.
No, his knockouts are entertaining. Like you said, there's a couple of fights. I remember he had a good fight with Eric Anders.
Eric Anders fight was good. That was in that time.
Yeah,
the Jimmy Manuwa fight was like an incredible fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome. His fight with Jamal Hill wasn't too bad, but he's had some stinkers, man. He's had some stinkers. The Ankalaev fight was super slow. The Rakic fight took years off my life. Like that fight was abhorrently bad. What else has he been doing? Nothing. Nothing. I don't understand why he's still fighting, because I don't think he can cut it at the highest level anymore. I'm not even sure he can cut it at a kind of a mid-tier level anymore.
Well, he's 40 years old, to be fair. I mean, you don't think of him as being that old, but he's 40 years old. His knees are shot at this point.
He has no knees.
He doesn't move well.
No, he doesn't. And that's kind of a bad thing for, like, have you noticed, like, since his injury, he's just stopped throwing all those things that made him so exciting, like all the big fucking wheel kicks and everything. That was his whole thing. That was his whole trademark, that he was really flashy for a big guy and he hit really hard. And he doesn't hit hard anymore and he doesn't throw kicks anymore. So what are we doing? Why are we putting him on pay-per-view main cards? Oh, that fight enraged me. It really did.
The other fight that I wanted to talk about was I feel a little bit bad, heavily criticizing this one, but I had to sit and watch it, so I think it deserves a little bit. I don't know how much longer I can put time into Clarissa Shields in MMA. It's like, and it's not like, I'm not criticizing her. She didn't need to do this. She absolutely does not need to do this. And she's had 3 fights. I'm not expecting her to be a lot better than she currently is. But also, I know she's a big name, and I know that's why she's on these cards, and it is intriguing to watch, a person who is the best in the world, what she does try and compete in MMA. But they're tough watches, and I don't know how much legs this experiment has left. I think they need to hurry up and get Savannah Marshall some fights soon so that they can do that and kind of cool this whole thing off for a bit, because I just don't need to see it. I just don't need to see it at the moment. And this one was the final one where I was like, I think we're good. I think we're good with this. Well, if you want to do the Savannah Marshall,
I didn't watch it live. I didn't watch it live, and I didn't want to.
I watched this one live.
No, I didn't, and then I felt bad because I saw that she won, and I was like, a lot of people hate on her, but she's going in there, she's out of her comfort zone, she's really giving it a good go in MMA. Maybe I should go and find it. I could not find anyone who posted anything about that fight. It was just angry tweets saying this is shit. Like highlights of that fight don't exist. I'm convinced. And to Kyle's point, like, I understand that they're putting her on there because she has a name, but do people really want to watch her fight? Most people I see talking about her despise her. They loathe her because she calls herself like the greatest women's boxer of all time, and she says that she fucking beat, X, Y, and Z male boxers, and it pisses people off. Also, best in the world is Katie Taylor. Just saying. So, she does she even have the claim to being the best women's boxer in the world? Not really. I'm going to say that. No more Clarissa Shields. I'm not interested.
For the record as well, I'm not factoring into this any of the the things that she says and the public opinion of Clarissa Shields, because I just kind of ignore all that. Like, she says things to annoy people, and I get it, but like, just purely from watching her evolve as an MMA fighter, it's a cool thing to do. It's a cool thing to try. Fair play to her. Like I said, she does not need to be doing this. She, I know that she might not make as much as the male boxers who are world champions, but she'd still probably earn a pretty good living for herself if she just stayed in boxing. So fair play to her, and I have a ton of time for her just for that alone. But like, I just don't need to watch it play out in front of my eyes anymore.
There's nothing about her media presence, like what she does to like Royal fans up or whatever. That's fine, but it doesn't make me want to watch her fight, and her fights don't make me want to watch her fight. I've seen her 2 fights before this, and there's nothing in there that made me went, oh, I need to watch the next Clarissa Shields fight. There's nothing drawing me to it, and I haven't seen this one, but the fact that I haven't seen it, when I went to go look to watch it and couldn't find it, that tells me all I need to know. So yeah, I'm checking out on this one too.
It was also a split decision, and Ben Cartledge, who, one of the best judges in the world, was the one who gave it to DeSantis. So as an interesting point, if nothing else.
There is
Yeah.
actually one other talking point from this card that I would put into the ugly category, but I can't say it on camera, so it can't go. It can't be public. So I will tell you guys that once we get done recording. It's about a fight that we haven't spoken about yet as well, but I can't release that information.
I have something about PFL that really annoyed me this week too, but I'm not going to say that on camera too.
I don't, but I'll think of something that annoys me about PFL, and I'll say it once we're done.
Right. You guys good to move on to the UFC card?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. UFC Mexico City. This felt like a big deal. I mean, to have those, top 2 fights on this card, it just, like, to be honest, I hadn't even paid a whole lot of attention to the rest of the card just because of I saw that those guys were on this card and it was going to be in Mexico, and I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I was excited for this one. I don't think there's like a ton to talk about because I think it did end up being pretty top heavy in terms of the talking points. But I will let you guys decide where you want to go.
That's good because I missed most of the prelims.
As we spoke about before we recorded, so did me and Jake. So
I didn't know that. I missed that bit.
Yeah, to be honest, I did kind of like skim through the stuff that I had missed, and I didn't see a ton of stuff that people were like, oh, you need to go and watch this. So unless there's a fight coming up that I want to do some research on, I'll go back and watch some of these fights. But it didn't seem like the earlier fights on the card were particularly anything to write home about. So I suppose that in itself could go in the bad category.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you guys kick this off, by the way. Where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with something good. Now, it might sound bad, but just stay with me on this one. Daniel Lacerda losing, which pushes him to 0-6-1 in the UFC. You cannot justify keeping him on the roster anymore. I'm happy he lost this because they'll finally cut him. He's clearly not a UFC level fighter. It's time to go.
Damn.
I didn't know that. That was one of the fights I missed. Damn, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about the record either. That was kind of wild, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, his 1-0 contest was originally a loss. It was that. It was the fight at Noche UFC where the ref jumped in and stopped it, and then there was a protest about, was it early, all that kind of stuff. That's why it got overturned. So yeah, I think he's 0-6-1 in the UFC now. He's not in the UFC. He will be.
I think it's 0-5-1. Just to correct you there, Jake. Also, this fight we did
still.
It's no better. It's not much better.
No,
but also this fight we did have. This fight we did have the rare double weight miss. Was it this fight?
No, it was that fight. Yeah. I like when the likes of those people lose. Okay, that sounds horrible to say, but like, you look at like Jamie Pickett, right? Jamie Pickett has like 1 win and 7 losses in the UFC, and he still gets picked. It's just the more these people keep losing, the more pressure it puts on the UFC to get rid of these people because they're not elite talents.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect that's where we were going to kick it off, but fair point. I didn't even notice. Didn't even notice that Lacerda had lost that many fights.
Jamie Pickett is 2-6.
So it's close enough. 1-7. Does he have like a bogey? Does he have like a bogey? Does he have like a bogey split decision win that I can claim is really a loss?
No, they're both unanimous. He hasn't lost to Jordan Wright, which isn't great. I like Jordan Wright, but that's not great.
Yeah, that's not good. You guys remember Jordan Wright? Yeah,
I like the Beverly Hills Ninja. I liked him. Wasn't.
I was with you, Steve, until you reminded me that was his nickname. No, I'm not so sure.
No, I used to like watching his fights. He kind of, his fights stopped being enjoyable near the end. But no, he was cool. He was cool.
Well, he would either knock you out or get knocked out, and then he had a couple of knockouts early, and then it just seemed like he would just get knocked out all the time. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, just fell off a fucking cliff.
Sure, he's a nice guy.
Lovely guy. He looks like an absolute sweetheart. But that's brought me back down memory lane, back to the start of the Apex era.
I don't know if this is why you mentioned Jamie Pickett, but Jamie Pickett is fighting this weekend.
Yeah, that's why he came to mind.
Yeah, against Eric Anders. Which is like that might have to be a skip, I'll be honest.
God.
Yeah, that's
yeah, let's not address that card. Please, let's talk about Mexico. I don't want to give that the fucking time of day.
I'm gonna go with one of the
Kyle's favorite, Christian Leroy Duncan, is on that card.
There's actually quite a lot on that card that I'm pretty into, but you know.
I'm not going to go into this card now. While I'm on here, Javid Basharat versus Ayman Zahabi is a good fight.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'm excited to watch Mokaev. Fingers crossed it happens. Don't get me wrong.
Well, he's fighting Alex Perez, so no, it won't happen. Alex Perez will pull out.
This doesn't make up for the fact that it is a Apex card headlined by
what might happen on that card though is Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Tercios, bringing us back to Mexico.
Yes, indeed.
Our friend Paul.
Oh, good old
good man Paul.
Also, the card this weekend is on at like a pretty good time for UK.
Yeah, it is.
I'm always more lenient on those cards. So,
I mean, it's not a great card, but I get to watch Christian Leroy Duncan and Jared Basharat and Umar Nurmagomedov and Mohammed Mokaev, so it's fine. And
Shamil Gaziev. I fucking love Shamil Gaziev, man.
Yeah, you missed him off the list, Steve. You forgot.
I did.
Yeah. I'm gonna start with one of the top two.
He's 12-0. He's 12-0.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
No, he's good, man. He's good.
I'm not gonna.
Can't say I've seen him fight before, but
me neither. I'm not gonna grab the main event. I'm gonna go co-main event for the for my top of the good pile. Because I think rightly so to some degree. Brian Ortega has got quite a lot of criticism over the last few years. But then every single time he fights, I'm reminded why, I loved Brian Ortega during his rise up the featherweight division. Because the dude is so entertaining, so tough, super respectful as well. Like the camaraderie between him and Yair Rodriguez was great to see, especially because that Mexico crowd were ready to throw hands at a moment's notice. So it was a nice vibe between them. Fight itself was incredible, and I think it was a real y'all must have forgot for Brian Ortega, not just in terms of his ability, his heart, him actually being likable, like all of these things. Brian Ortega hit it out of the park this past weekend, and for me, he was like by far and above the best thing about this card.
You say you like Brian Ortega, Kyle. Do you have a Brian Ortega t-shirt?
No, I got a Max Holloway shirt from when they fought though, so I like
it. I have a Brian Ortega t-shirt, and I was looking for it because I was gonna put it on Saturday during the fight, and I couldn't find it. I was gutted. I have a Max Holloway t-shirt too, actually.
It was a close one. I hated watching that fight. I loved both of those guys, but
yeah,
a lot's changed.
Yeah.
I think Ortega's performance took me by surprise, because I was kind of in that boat of people who were criticizing him, thinking his last win was against the Korean Zombie when he wasn't at his best before that. It was fucking Frankie Edgar, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I was critical of him, and I was starting to ask the question: did he deserve that title shot against Volkanovski? Does he deserve this fucking immediate rematch? Yeah, he does. Turns out he's still pretty good. He's he's still pretty elite. I don't want to see him against Topuria. I think giving him another title shot off of just one win would be ridiculous. And as much as
that fight's not going to go well for him either.
Oh no!
I mean,
no.
as much as Ortega always, when he's been good, he's always been a guy that gets hit and comes back, right? I don't think you come back when Topuria hits you.
No. I was just, obviously like I I'm only back in the game this week, but yeah, no, I was astounded by what Topuria did to Volkanovski. I still am.
That's why we haven't talked about it on the podcast. We haven't talked about it. We didn't do a show last week. We haven't talked about that fight either. We probably should. We probably should at some point.
Anyway, Ortega, don't put him in there. Give him Evloev maybe.
Yeah, that's the one I think.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
Doesn't sound very fun on paper because Evloev is what, like 8-0 with 8 decisions, but I think Ortega will bring the fight out of him.
Well, they don't really want to reward Evloev, do they? They're not happy with Evloev at the minute.
Apparently, it was the worst fight that Dana White's ever seen, but I thought it was okay.
Yeah. It was good.
I thought it was fun.
I thought
it was a good fight.
Better fights on that event, but
we talked about this at the time. I'm not sure whether he got them confused with Raquel Pennington and Myra Bueno Silva, or it's an easy mistake to make.
Not that I put this down at the time, but can we put into the ugly category Brian Ortega nearly injuring himself seconds before the fight started? Because Jesus Christ, I watched this on Sunday morning and I had to rewind it because I was like, did that just happen? I've never seen that happen. I was like, oh my god! And then when he gets dropped in that first round, I was like, this Brian Ortega, like the criticism is all justified. Like this is insane.
It's James Krause all over again because I thought I had a look at the betting lines. He went from plus 140 to plus 220 in the time between when he got in the ring to when the fight started. Just stop betting on him. Oh.
Speaking of James Krause, there was another talking point with him in the main event, and like if he was still involved, he probably would have made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, I was. One more thing on Ortega. We don't have a funny category, but him being scared of Mark Goddard was very funny.
I think Goddard was. I think he was justified though. I think Rodriguez. He clearly tapped. He's tapping for a good 2 or 3 seconds, and he just wasn't letting go. I think I saw someone said like he's got PTSD from Volkanovski. Like he's not letting go anymore. He's not letting go until people go unconscious.
I wrote an article today about Brian Ortega's reasoning for that. He explained the whole thing, and
he had it was like an ear problem, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's what he said.
That I get, right? He's like, I couldn't hear my God. Fair enough, but he also the thing that I was like,
he was grabbing him as well.
He said, yeah. So there's that, but then it's also coupled with he said he didn't feel Yair's tap because he tapped lightly, and I was like, let me go back and watch this again. It's like either Brian Ortega feels nothing because he's that tough. Or like I don't know, because not only was Yair Rodriguez tapping, Mark Goddard is like grabbing him. Like,
Mark Goddard's a big guy. Mark Goddard's a big guy. Like it's not like you have Keith Peterson like kind of tugging on you. Like Keith Peterson's kind of small. Goddard's a unit. Like if that guy's trying to pull you off an opponent, you know about it. So yeah, that was an odd one.
Yeah. Fortunately, Yair Rodriguez seemed absolutely fine. So, I feel like we're okay to laugh about it and to Brian Ortega's reaction. But, yeah, it was weird when it happened.
Yeah.
Steve, do you want to go with a... Well, actually, pick anything, because I don't know how many more talking points you guys have got. So,
well, we need to talk about the main event, don't we? I think Royval's performance was generally good, but I would throw into the bad category part of Moreno's game plan. Don't think it worked. He's always struggled with southpaws as well, a little bit. I don't think it worked well for him at all. And that's what I'm saying with James Krause. If James Krause was still his coach, maybe he would have filled in his little 1% club that is it 1% Club? I think that's what it was. That Moreno maybe, he was just going to kind of wing these overhands and wasn't going to fight like his normal self and won some money off of it.
Very, very bizarre showing there from Moreno. And yeah, it leaves the division in a really weird situation because as much as I think everyone would not be on board with a Moreno title shot, Royval just fought for the title.
Yeah,
in December.
You can't go, but you can't go straight back to that.
No way. You got to do him and I don't know, Manel Cap maybe, but then again, Cap he came in with it's a whole situation. So I think no matter who won this fight, it was gonna be weird. That's not what I'm gonna put in ugly. I'm gonna put Herb Dean breaking up clinches and the amount of clinching in this fight.
That was a weird one. That was a weird one there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just weird because they'd be clinching, and there was a lot of clinching. But Herb Dean, just like, no. What do you mean, no? What the fuck are you doing?
It was like, it's like he's immediately like doing the, break it up. He's like immediately going to the claps, right? And then, there's way more egregious clinching that would not be broken up. It was really weird that he seemed particularly hot on it in that fight.
I didn't even remember to put that one on there, but like I was screaming at the TV. I genuinely thought that Herb thought he was reffing in one championship, the way he was constantly calling for action. It was like, what are you doing? And then when in the 5th round, when Moreno grapples with him and he breaks him up, I'm like, he might have just cost Brandon Moreno the fight. Like, that's crazy. Like, what is I feel like I haven't seen, like, the reason I completely forgot to put this on my list, I feel like I've seen nobody talk about this. I've listened to podcasts reflecting on this card and they didn't mention this. Like, what this is like, that was, like I said, I was shouting at the TV. I can't, like, I know that referees make mistakes and stuff, but this one was like an all-time bad one, I thought. And I feel like no one has really spoken about it. But like, yeah, like I said, it was like he was reffing in one all of a sudden. It was baffling to watch.
Yeah, you can't get two guys who have good submission skills and decent ground games, and then anytime they get into a grappling exchange, call for action or break them up. What are you doing?
Also,
like
when they did grapple, like when they were able to grapple, neither guy are like a Pantoja style of grappling where, maybe you can be like, yeah, maybe he's resting a little bit here or stuff like that. The scrambles between them were like insanely fast, as you would expect from Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. Neither of these guys are stalling. Like, it was just ludicrous. I can't believe that it happened and that, it could have impacted the fight. Like, I'm not sure that it massively did because Brandon Moreno, I put Brandon Moreno's performance into bad as well. I just, like, there were certain aspects of it that just felt really off to me. But at the same time, I agree, it puts the division in such a weird place. Like, I put Brandon Royval's post-fight speech into ugly. It just didn't really feel like the kind of statement to make after that win to point at Pantoja and
I can't say I remember what he said, I'll be honest.
I don't remember it super clearly, but it was just like super like cocky, like and it didn't really feel like it was that earned. Not to take away from Royval's performance, I thought he did look good, and it would have been an incredibly difficult idea to try and beat Brandon Moreno with output, but he did it and it worked. So fair play to Brandon Royval. But I just thought it was a bit. I mean, obviously Pantoja was there, so that added to it a little bit. But it just felt like a bit of a weird. It felt like a drop the mic moment when the crowd was a bit like, oh, that was a close fight and could have gone either way. So I don't know if it really had the impact that you would have wanted. Like, I think that realistically, you can't give him another shot at Pantoja. Obviously, this was supposed to be Amir Albazi, who, would he have beaten Brandon Moreno on that night? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Brandon Moreno probably needs a little bit of time off. Because he just didn't really look himself. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if it happens again, fingers crossed, Mohamed Mokaev got on that mic, beats Alex Perez.
Wide
Rio de
open.
Janeiro.
Wide open.
Could happen.
One thing I want to touch on from the end of this fight as well. When they're getting their hands raised, it's like, obviously, they're both Brandon, right? There's a bit of confusion for both of them. And I tweeted this as well, so maybe I'll bring it up later. But Herb Dean raises Brandon Royval's hand when he says Brandon. Like, sure, like, I assume he's clued in and he's not just forgetting that Brandon Moreno's called Brandon. But, like, build a bit of intrigue there, mate. Despite having his hand raised, Brandon Royval looks around like he's lost. Like he forgot his name was Brandon, and he just assumed Brandon Moreno won. Meanwhile, Brandon Moreno's there when he announces Brandon Moreno's looking happy. Like he thinks he's won. He forgot the guy he's fighting is called Brandon as well. And then he turns around and he's like shocked when they say Raw Dog Royval. So I mean, just one thing. Go back and watch that. Go back and watch that.
This keeps happening. It happened with Charles Jordan and Sean Woodson as well. Sean Woodson won the fight.
Oh my god! I don't.
That was
I think we talked about that, didn't we, Kyle? I think, but yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was.
And they had to go tap Sean Woodson on the shoulder. Like, whatever you won, come back. Amazing.
Oh, that was so weird. I think the only other good point I've got out of this card was when they cut to Pantoja. Just for the main event, and he went 5-0 because between the two guys in the main event, he has 5 wins over them.
Having seen the scenes in the crowd, but for Pantoja to do that to the camera in Mexico City, I rate it.
Can we talk? Can we? And this is part of the reason I wanted to do like the videos, like we talked about earlier, because like I want to do a full breakdown of that crowd ball.
Kyle has his little face to paint at it for fucking Pete Carroll. And I'll tell you what, very well made. Very well made.
Thank you.
Like obviously, like
yeah.
The main story is the one guy who like knocks down 2 people, right? I like how he knocks down the first guy, great. Then he just like walks straight up to the second guy, just like he just throws it like just out of nowhere. It's great.
Then takes a step back, puts his hat on, and grabs his beard.
Yeah.
What guy? My favorite part about it is the second guy that he drops. His like shirt sleeves are gone. Like what?
Yeah.
Like, where have you just come out of a zombie apocalypse? Like what has happened? Mental.
I'm confused why he's just walked up to why he's walked up to this random guy and touched him. Like these guys were not involved in brawling with each other. He just walked up to him and touched him.
The guy with no sleeves isn't even looking. He's looking the other way. He's like Sean Woodson. He's out here.
Man.
And someone asked Dana then at the press conference, was like, Dana, what happened with the brawl in the crowd? It was like, I don't know. Nobody in security went near them. They just waited until the fight had ended. At least with Strickland and Duplessis, people got in the middle. There was a massive fucking brawl between people in the middle of the crowd, and then one guy went around assaulting people, and no one intervened. The man's a menace.
I like how Dana in his press conference was like, "Oh, this hasn't happened before," and I was just thinking, like, it happened with your 2 best middleweights 2 months ago.
It was your main selling point for the fight. It was in all the trailers.
Do you think we can get odds on the guy with the hat and the beer getting signed by Daniel Laceda in his next fight?
Oh, someone's got to sign him. David Feldman's already putting an offer I've had. Get him in bed, Uncle FT. Let's go.
Imagine the promo image is just a still from the fight where it cut the hat. Oh, so good.
Oh. You know what? Not a bad night. Not a bad night, all things considered. Oh, that
We
was
should-
a.
we
I
should
wanted to, I
talk-
wanted to, I wanted to bring up the Zelhuber versus Prado fight, but it seems irrelevant now.
Yeah, no, I only watched the highlights of that fight, but didn't the fucking corner man say you don't need your eyes or some shit
Yes,
like that?
he did. Yeah, he did.
Oh, that's some fucking.
And then
That's-
Michael
that's-
Bisping
that's-
quote tweeted him as like, "Yes, he's right."
Yeah. That's some fucking Greg Jackson level advice. Like when GSP fucking tore his groin, he was, I don't care, hit him with your groin, George. That's fucking superb coaching. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't need your eye? Stop the fight, man. He can't see. Stop. You're taking years off his life. He's not going to be able to remember his grandchildren's names. But you're saying you don't need your eye. Who was it? Was it Mark Montoya? That's the name that comes to mind. But I could be accidentally slandering Mark Montoya.
Montoya was with Royval, though.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
Yeah, Zelhuber, is he interim?
Oh, I don't know. It was whoever was it. Who's in Prado's corner? Well, it was Prado.
Oh, it was Prado.
It
It
was
was Prado, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry,
Prado.
Mark Montoya. The man who's been through.
He has. I don't think it was the main man, President Awesome, but he has Goat Shed listed on his thing.
Okay.
Was it?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and.
Was it President Awesome?
No, I
I don't want to slander President Awesome, but like it says Goat Shed on his topology.
If it is, have some shame. That was a horrible coaching decision.
I'm finding this now because I don't want to like feel the wrath of Azim Lady.
Yeah, it was President Awesome. I just found.
Was it? Oh my god.
I've just seen. I just searched Francisco Prado and
Yes,
Mike Bond.
it is. I found it. I found the video.
Oh,
Get back to like promoter fights at his mother's house, like and not like man.
Yeah. That's horrible, man. That's horrible. You don't need your eye. Don't need your eyes. What is wrong with this? What's wrong with the sport?
Lots of things.
Can't we all just watch
apparently.
tennis and
I don't wanna,
snooker? No one gets the shit knocked out of them there.
I don't want to end this on a bad note either, but I did put this into bad, but that feels a little bit harsh. I put it into good because I thought Manuel Torres looked very good against Chris Duncan, although obviously I was gutted to see our boy Chris Duncan lose that fight. But at the same time, like I think he even posted this himself that like he got caught with, some things that he didn't even know were possible. Like Manuel Torres, like his fighting style was crazy. And I was, that like first punch that Chris Duncan threw that hurt him, I was like, oh, here we go. And then Manuel Torres just like out crazied him. So
yeah, Manuel Torres is really good. That's definitely someone to kind of keep an eye on.
yeah, he's super fun to watch. So
absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
What was the
as disappointing as it is to see Chris lose, the fact that Manuel Torres could beat him says a lot about Manuel Torres, because I think Chris Duncan, very underrated lightweight. And it's someone to look forward to for the future. And I know like Chris is, like he's looking at it straight away and he went, look, fuck it. I lost. I'll learn. I'll grow. He'll come back stronger. I've no doubt. So, yeah. I'll put that in good, but I think we're all upset.
that is
that
I had from the card.
Manuel Torres on him again hasn't been out in the first round many times, if at all. Certainly not in his UFC career. If you include Contender Series, there's 4 first round wins for him now.
Yeah, that's.
And like I said, when he loses in the first round too. So, especially with Chris Duncan in there, that was going to be a crazy fight, and it was pretty wild while it lasted.
Will he end up being the next Jordan Wright?
I mean, who knows? He had that kind of run for a bit too. The
I fucking hope not. I hope not. I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemies.
his nickname is El Loco, which feels appropriate.
Yeah, no, he's to out crazy Chris Duncan takes a lot.
Yeah.
Because Chris Duncan will sway. He'll fucking swang and bang with everyone.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to touch on. Steve, was there anything else that you wanted to mention before we close out this episode? From some of the stuff that happened. Like, I only caught really brief glimpses of the KSW card, but that whole thing looks like
I've only seen clips of the KSW show. It looked like wild. I can't find my because I'm looking at. There we go. I was trying to find my Twitter bookmarks, but like on my laptop, I don't know how to find it. There was some kind of wild stuff outside the UFC this weekend. Obviously, KSW, we had Phil DeFries and Josh Barnett in a grappling match. That's something that happened. We had like medieval warriors in the cage with like full armor and swords. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah.
No.
We had. No, you didn't see that, Jake?
I didn't see that.
We had some real like stomps. We had some soccer kicks. That KSW show looks time. Shout out to Mason Jones as well. Another win for him on Cage Warriors. We love Mason Jones. And I'm just going through things of the weekend. Did you guys see? This is how we planned this. Did you see Craig Jones pulling off the triangle off the pit in Karate Combat?
Yeah.
No.
Super sick.
Yeah.
But send it to me because I want to
see. This is why I wanted this segment.
Yeah.
We need to make it work next time.
Yeah.
18. We had Fury FC had an 18-second ninja choke. Shannon Clark won the LFA, one of the women's belts, with a bulldog choke, which was awesome. She's probably going to be on the channel with an interview sooner rather than later, if I would say. Yeah, there was really a ton of stuff. Muslim Tulshayev was the guy who won the no holds barred fight for KSW. Yeah. Definitely go and seek out. Definitely go and seek out some clips from that one.
Yeah, that fight was so cool. Bring back no holds barred, man.
Bring back no holds barred, exactly. Yeah. And that does it for kind of Cage Warriors. Cage Warriors Wilson Hayes got the win in the main event too.
Yeah, that as well. That was pretty impressive. But I think Mason Jones was the main standout for that card.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, did you see Chuck Liddell falling off of a yacht?
I nearly put that into ugly for just no reason. Just to talk about it.
If we had the videos, that was gonna be on there as well. So
Oh, yeah. That shouldn't be funny. That shouldn't be funny. He's an old man.
He's okay. He's okay.
Clearly has cognitive problems, and he fell off a boat. I'm concerned for his health.
I mean, they got it back up.
It was kind of funny. It was kind of funny how he fell off, and no one went to go get him for a good 10 seconds. They just kept pointing at him in the water and going, "Chuck fell in. Chuck fell in." Go fucking get him then.
He's the Iceman. He'll be all right. He'll work it out. You know?
Nah, I understand that.
He's on the water, man. He's the Iceman. It's not cold enough.
You can't be the Iceman and not be able to turn things into ice. You can't be like, I can't turn this water into ice. It's not cold enough.
I mean, if he.
You're gonna
the Iceman.
Gordon Wright isn't actually a ninja. Like, this is getting out of hand.
Now I'm just trying to think what would happen if the Iceman tried to dive headfirst into the ice like Murad Dvalishvili did. Would he just go straight through it? Would he like burn through the ice?
Well, yeah, he's the Iceman. He's not Waterman.
Right. I imagine that we'll be hopefully back next week to chat about all the stuff that's going on this weekend.
Yes, the massive Jairzinho Rosenstrike Shamil Gaziev card.
The big one. The people's main event. Christian Leroy Duncan. I haven't got a clue who he's fighting, but he's the people's main event.
He is fighting. Hold on.
I actually don't know who he's fighting either, but fucking go on CLD, lad.
Of course. He hasn't. Has he been back in the pub since he has been in the UFC or not?
No, I can't say I've seen. onto bigger pastures, training at Renegade and stuff. He's not got time.
Of course.
You're never too good for Gloucestershire, man. Never.
He's fighting Claudio Ribeiro.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
Who is 1-2 in the UFC, losses to Abdul Razak Galasan and Roman Kopylov, and a win over Joseph Holmes.
Yeah, not a bad fighter, and he's being pushed on.
He got head kicked.
Yeah, he's been on 2 pay-per-views.
Starling Cejudo and Poirier Gaethje. Yeah, he got head kicked by Kopylov in his last one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Christian looked great in his last fight, and that doesn't seem that long ago. It feels like a fairly quick turnaround as well for Christian.
Yeah.
No, he fought in November.
Yeah,
so
I was thinking
we'll probably jump back on next week to talk about CLD, talk about Mohamed Mokaev as well, of course. And
Jared Basharat, Umar Nurmagomedov, our favourite Paul Rosas Jr.
The main man,
Mr.
Paul Rosas.
Hopefully, Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. That's not going to last long.
No. We don't come in here talking about Vitor Petrino, right? No, we don't.
Battle of 2 former.
Oh yeah. That's
opponents.
I forgot who Petrino was. I'm sorry.
Well, no. We don't mention that name. We're in these friends.
Yeah.
Both guys have fought Mo in the past.
Nobody.
So
yeah.
But Mo beat one of them, so that's fine.
I'll be interested to get his take on that, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Tyson Pedro, stand-up fella. Vitor Petrino? Who? Irrelevant. That's who.
Have you seen Tyson Pedro as one of the gladiators on Gladiators Australia?
No.
He is.
No, I haven't.
It's like the new series of Gladiators Australia. It came back around the same time it did here. Tyson Pedro is one of the gladiators.
You must get us a clip for next week, Steve.
I will. I'm going to send you a clip right now. Which makes me think which UK, and we're major off topic now. We've run over what we want to do, but which UK MMA fighter would be the best gladiator?
Who'd look best standing for Bradley Walsh?
I mean, if you want a serious answer, the answer is Tom Aspinall. Like, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, he's the biggest,
if you want
one of the most athletic.
Fair.
But if you want a less than obvious answer,
Arnold Allen. He has the kind of toughness that I think would really shine through. And I think he'd get on really well with like Bradley Walsh. So yeah.
Yeah, he probably would.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I feel like we should put George Hardwick up for it. Just feel like I feel like he'll win the UK public over so quickly. They'd have him co-hosting next to Bradley Walsh in no time. So
I mean, he wouldn't do any worse than Bradley Walsh's son.
Yeah. Replace him with the Hardwicks. That's what I say about every TV host. And then Deck don't need him.
And then they take away and get the Hardwicks in.
Whoever does morning TV, don't need them. Get the Hardwicks in. Everybody.
Ant and Deck, Harry and George Hardwick, man.
Yeah.
There's also a big One Championship card this Friday. So
yes, there is.
we'll
That's
chat
right
about
as
that
well,
next
yeah.
week as well. So
Jesus.
I think that's just about it. But yeah, all right. We'll be back next week to talk about all of that stuff and more, and Jairzinho Rosenstrike in the main event.